Today, we're diving into the story of a preventable death, a grieving family, and a legal battle that completely redefined what it means to be responsible for someone else. This is the case of Reeves versus the Commissioner, and it forces us to ask one of the most difficult questions in all of law. And here's that question just laid bare. Can you actually be held legally responsible for someone else's suicide? I mean, your gut instinct, my gut instinct, is probably to say, no way. It's such a deeply personal act. But what if it was your job to protect them? That's the really uncomfortable territory we're getting into.
See, this isn't some abstract legal theory. This all started with a real-world tragedy. A man named Martin Lynch died by suicide while he was alone in a police cell. And here's the single most important detail of the entire story. The police knew he was a suicide risk. That one fact is the key that unlocks this entire case.
So to really get why this decision was so huge, we have to go back to the beginning and look at exactly what happened on that day. The timeline of events is just chillingly straightforward. Martin Lynch is arrested and taken into custody. A doctor sees him and flags him explicitly as a suicide risk. But despite that very clear warning, the spy hatch on his cell door was left open. He was able to use that hatch to take his own life. This wasn't some complicated chain of failures. It was one simple physical and tragic oversight. Okay, so this is where the legal fight really begins. The police actually admitted they were negligent. They knew that hatch shouldn't have been left open. But, they argued, their mistake didn't cause his death. Their entire defense hinged on this one really powerful legal idea. And that idea is called novus actus interveniens. It's Latin for a new intervening act. And the argument goes something like this. Even if I messed up, if some other new unforeseen event happens after my mistake, that new event breaks the chain of causation. And if that chain is broken, I'm no longer legally responsible for what happens at the end. So this set up the central conflict of the case. On one side, you have Martin Lynch's family. They're arguing, look, the police had a specific duty to protect him from exactly this. Their negligence directly led to his death. But on the other side, the police are saying that Mr. Lynch's own conscious decision to take his life was that novus actus. It was the new intervening act that broke the chain of causation and, in their view, freed them from legal responsibility.
Now, the path to a final ruling was anything but simple. In fact, when this case first went to court, the judges actually sided with the police.
So as the case worked its way up to the Court of Appeal, the verdict stayed the same. The judges consistently agreed with the police. They rule that a person's deliberate act of suicide is the ultimate intervening act. It breaks any chain of causation, period. You can just imagine. For Mr. Lynch's family, it must have felt like the legal battle was completely lost. But it wasn't over. The case was appealed one last time, all the way to the highest court in the UK, the House of Lords. And their decision wasn't just going to settle this one case. It was about to create a landmark ruling that would change the law forever. And the court's logic was just so powerful, and it's captured perfectly in this quote from Lord Hoffman. Think about it. How can you argue that the suicide was a new, unforeseen event when the entire reason you had a duty of care in the first place was to prevent that exact thing from happening? So the House of Lords' final decision was crystal clear. 1. The police had a duty of care. 2. The suicide did not break the chain of causation because it wasn't some unforeseeable act. It was the very harm the duty was supposed to prevent. Therefore, the chain was intact. The police were legally liable. This ruling was a seismic shift in the law. So let's talk about its legacy and what it really means for any institution, police, prisons, hospitals, that's responsible for looking after vulnerable people.
But hold on, because the ruling wasn't just a simple case of blaming the police 100%. The court added one last crucial layer to their decision. They also had to account for Martin Lynch's own role in his death. And they did that using a legal concept called contributory negligence.
Here's how they reasoned it out. While Mr. Lynch's judgment was clearly impaired, he wasn't legally insane. So his final act was, in the eyes of the law, still a conscious choice. Because of this, they decided to split the responsibility right down the middle. 50% liability for the police because of their negligence, and 50% contributory negligence for Mr. Lynch's own actions. And what that meant in practice was that the financial damages awarded to his family were cut in half. So when you step back, the legacy of Reeves is just immense. It established, for the first time, a really clear legal duty for institutions to protect people who are known suicide risks. It sent a powerful message that you can't just use suicide as an automatic get-out-of-jail-free card for negligence. And it created the legal framework for how to balance responsibility in these most tragic and sensitive circumstances. And so, this case leaves us with a question that echoes far, far beyond the courtroom. In a world that prizes personal freedom and autonomy, where does our duty to protect other people from themselves actually begin? And where does it end? The law gave an answer in this case, but the ethical question, well, that's one we're all left to think about.